And I have found that the bigger ones, they'll react to that fly, that floating fly, pretty well. Sometimes big ones will come in, and they'll come in and they're pretty cautious. They're kind of snooping around. I can read what the fish is going to do. If I get a hot fish, we won't even tease it. But if you get that fish that's kind of cautious, then we'll throw the teaser out. So the teaser is a orange marlin skirt with a bonita belly strip shoved inside of it on a long casting rod. And I'll throw that out, and I'll put it right in front of the Mako's nose. I'll throw it out there, and they lock in on that, and I pull it away from them. And it's like teasing a cat with a toy mouse. And you'll see these really massive redfish in there grubbing around and tailing and eating blue crabs, they get on oyster beds, and they kind of root around, and they get all kinds, whatever's in those oyster beds. But they also chase mullet. But for fly fishing and sight fishing off of a flats boat, which these guys use, a pulling skiff, when it's on, it's about as good as it gets, because they're big fish, and the cast isn't that far, a 40-foot cast.
Conway Bowman, thank you for joining us, my friend. It's good to see you.
Thanks, Scott. Good to be here.
So let's just jump into it, man. You're fresh off a trip to New Orleans for Reds. Tell me all about the trip. I mean, you're pretty set up down there. You've been doing it for a while. What's it all about?
Well, this trip was tough because there was this hurricane that was spinning out in the Gulf, and it never left. So it kind of sucked in all that bad weather. So we had a couple days of really bad weather. That's the way it is. When you fish in Louisiana, if you book 2 days, it's rough. And I only had 2 days. So you really want to do 5 days. And if you do 5 days, you're going to get 2 days of good weather. But we hit crappy weather. We got a couple of redfish. It was okay. But the wind was blowing, 20 knots every day with gusts of up to 40 plus rain.
Oh, wow. Were you doing a hosted trip, or was this personal?
No, it was a hosted trip. I took a couple buddies down there. So it was tough, but
yeah,
that's just the way it is this time of year. You can really hit it great, or really, the thing is, if we had any light, we probably could have done it much better because the fish were there, but the water was just churned up because of the wind. So we couldn't see them.
But you've been doing this for years, right? And you're at a lodge down there. I mean, tell me about the whole setup you got going on down there.
Yeah,
so I'm just interested. Tell me about the whole experience.
So I started fishing down there in 2003, and it was sort of, it was early on before that fishery was really kind of what it is today. And we found that that area is loaded with giant redfish, sight fishing to them on the fly. So since then, I've been going back a couple times every year, and what so basically, I'll stay there are a couple different places I stay at friends' houses. There are a couple nice lodges, like the lodge at Delacroix is nice. There's another one called Dogwood, which is pretty cool. Dogwood is all inclusive. You can get all your meals plus your guiding. But I like to handpick my guides. So, when I do that, oftentimes I'll stay with the guide, or I'll find an Airbnb. But the program is you get down there and you're fishing in really shallow water in the marsh. You launch in an area called Hopedale. You run maybe 45 minutes to an hour from there, and then you're fishing those they call them ponds. They're actually just big kind of lakes within the estuary system. And starting this time of year all the way through February, the big bull reds get up in there and they start spawning with the females. And it's really shallow water. It's water anywhere from 3 feet deep to, 8 inches deep. And you'll see these really massive redfish in there grubbing around and tailing and eating blue crabs, they get on oyster beds, and they kind of root around, and they get all kinds, whatever's in those oyster beds. But they also chase mullet. So, they have a variety of things they're eating. But for fly fishing and sight fishing off of a flats boat, which these guys use, a pulling skiff, when it's on, it's about as good as it gets, because they're big fish, and the cast isn't that far. A 40-foot cast is pretty much as far as you're going to go. Not to say you're not going to have to make a longer cast. If the fish are getting pressured, because what I've seen in the last 10 years is a lot more guides guiding there now, a lot more activity. You've got guides coming in from Florida, from all over, because it's such a great fishery, and it's such a vast area that there's a lot of room for people. But if you're fishing in an area that's being heavily pressured by other fly fishermen and poling skiffs, the redfish get pretty touchy. So it was very evident a number of years ago when we were out on a flat, not a boat in sight, and we had a trolling motor. We put the trolling motor on. We're kind of kicking along, and we had fish 100 feet away. The minute that trolling motor started going, they split. And so I think those fish relate that sound to poling skiffs or some sort of bay boat. So they've gotten really touchy. So, like any fishery, right? The more pressure, the more educated the fish get, and there you go. So it's become more challenging. It's still relatively easy, but when I first started fishing down there, it was insane. I mean, you'd pull into one of these ponds, and this is before they were using trolling motors on these flats boats. You'd pull into one of these ponds, you'd have 100 fish tailing. And you're like, which one am I going to go for? 2003.
2003.
And man, I'm telling you, it was in January 4th, 2004. I think I had my best day down there. The guy that was guiding me, Captain Greg Arnold, he and I went fish for fish for like 4 hours straight. We probably put, 40 fish on the boat that day. Anywhere from, they call them, schoolie sized, 5 to 10 pounds up to like 40 pounds. And I got one that was 40 pounds, 41 pounds, 10 ounces or something like that. Massive fish. And they were everywhere. I mean, there were big fish everywhere. So it was really great. Those fish are still there. Yet they are getting pressured. So it's a little bit more of a challenging fishery. But I highly suggest anybody getting into saltwater fly fishing and really taking it seriously and they want to become very proficient at sight fishing, start with a redfish, because that's going to get you in the headspace to target tarpon and bonefish and permit even. So you're because you're getting the opportunity to cast a lot of fish and sight fish and figure out how the fish moves and where to put the fly. So it's a great training ground. So I always say, people, if you want to get into sight fishing and saltwater, start with a redfish.
I went down there in 2018 for my first time, and it was I had some friends that lived down there, and we went to Jazz Fest and then did a day out there. And I think I talked to you about this, but the guide we had was a real character.
Oh yeah, they're all characters down there.
Yeah, but this guy was out there. We show up at the meeting spot. We sit down for a cup of coffee, and he's like, "Did you know there's a hole in the sun?"
Oh, awesome.
And we're like, "Okay." And he's like, "Yeah, check out this YouTube video."
Oh yeah.
And it just like right then I was like, "Man, I don't have the energy for this today." I got into some good fish. I mean, he knew what he was doing. He's just an old salty guy that was a different breed.
Man, well, I'll tell you, it's you find those kind of guides, sometimes, and it makes it kind of an awkward situation on the boat,
Yeah, it was awkward from the get-go, and we're just like, hey, you know what? Fuck it, we're gonna get into this. Yeah. We're gonna have fun either way, and all night after that, we had one-liners for days that we were just repeating to each other.
Well, you talk about no self-awareness, man. It's like, really? Yeah. I mean, these guys live in their, they're in their own little universe, and that's where they are. They honestly, I don't think they know what goes on outside of their little sphere. But I always tell people, you get out of your comfort zone when you get on a boat with somebody like that. You basically have to, you can go one of two ways. You can start challenging, or you can just say, hey, you can kind of change the course of the conversation. But it does make it uncomfortable and weird. So, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, mostly we were just laughing at him, but then once he started getting into the racist comments, we're like, all right, let's just tone it down a little bit here, bud.
It's just bizarre.
But I got into a nice one. I got like something in the 25-pound class, I would say.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Caught about, it wasn't crazy hot for us. I caught like 5 in the day, and my buddy who was with me, he's not really a fly fisherman. I tried to get him on a fish, but he was like struggling with the cast. But man, it was aside from the guide being a little bit colorful, it was amazing to be out there, and it is an amazing fishery. Just pulling into one of those fish and just coming up behind them, dropping the fly, and they're really spooky. They're extremely spooky. Obviously that wasn't that long ago, 2018, so you're probably seeing a lot of that pressure still even then.
Dude, I'm telling you, when I first started going down there, it was the easiest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd pull into one of these big ponds, and it's like, oh, well, here's 20 fish tailing, no problem. Boom, 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 and almost they'd swim to the boat like, what is this? They're thinking it was I don't know, an alligator. I don't know. It was just weird. But definitely since they've gotten more pressure, they've become more persnickety. But the thing is, that area, there's so many great places to fish that haven't even been explored yet. I mean, that's the great thing about that. If a guide puts in the effort, they're going to find uncharted water, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's great.
Yeah, it was a great experience. I remember the first fish we rolled in on, he was like, I had my shoes on. And he's like, all right, get up on the bow. I'm like, all right. I start walking with my shoes, and I spooked the fish. I mean, we're like 60 feet away from it. He just about took my head off. What the fuck are you doing? Take your shoes off. Take your shoes off. I'm like, wow. My bad.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Hey, let me ask you.
I had to yell at him a couple times. It was like, dude, this is not how this is going to go. All right.
Did you guys meet at Penny's?
Oh, yeah. Yep. That was it.
The famous Penny's.
That was the spot.
I used to go to Penny's when the only people who were in there were the locals. My guide and I would go in there, and it was like, it's like, wow, that was eye-opening.
Yeah.
It was really interesting. So, I could tell you a million stories about that, but anyway.
I would have loved seeing it back there in the early 2000s. Man.
It was special. It was definitely, and I definitely wasn't, the first guy, but there were a lot of guys that fished that back in the 80s, but it really got, popular in the kind of the mid 2000s. But it was and still is a great fishery.
Yeah. So you do it every year? Is it just 2 days each year? Or is it differ?
This year, it just differs. This year I had a kind of a short schedule, but I'll go back in February and I'll kind of extend that out to like 4 days. But this was a really short trip, and you're rolling the dice if you do that. You're basically the odds are against you that you're going to get a good day if you have 2 days. Because if you book 4, you get 2 bad days, 2 good days, and that's just the way it is. And one thing I have noticed is that fishery, the weather is getting kind of worse down there every year. You get more wind, more rain. The hurricanes are coming in later in the season now. So definitely things are changing. So it's probably best. That's why I'll go twice a year. I'll go in February, so I'm away from the hurricanes and the water's cooler. Because, when I first started fishing down there in November, the water was already where it needed to be temperature-wise. It was probably in the high to mid 60s. Now it's like mid 70s, so it's much warmer. And that's why those hurricanes are moving up and changing the whole weather dynamics. So.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, hot tip for you guys out there, book a year in advance.
Yes.
Because if you don't, you're going to end up with a guide like mine. I was like 3 months ahead, and I could not find. I think you gave me a list of top guides. A couple other buddies that were guides gave me top guides in NOLA, and all of them were booked out. Yeah. And I don't even remember how I found the dude.
All the good guys get booked. Yeah, book a year out and book 4 days, and book it in January or February.
There you go.
That's what I would do.
If you want to do it, listen to him. So you've been fly fishing for Mako since the 90s. How'd you get into the sport? How's the fishery changed over the past 3 decades? What conservation efforts have you implemented? I mean, you tell me that there's not that much pressure there, so it's pretty healthy. But explain to me how you got into it and what's changed over the years.
So my dad was a saltwater fly fisherman. He was one of the first ones in Southern California. He was a member of the Saltwater Fly Rodders of America, and I still have his patch. and his membership card. And this is in 1964, I think. Anyway, I was born in 66. So, he was into it. He had a small skiff, and when I was a little kid, I'd go out with him, and I would watch him cast, a Fenwick Fairlight 10 weight for bonita and barracuda, just, in our local bays. And so that sort of, got me interested in it. He had this great library too. I'd walk into his library. He had all the great books on the shelf, right? And he'd take one down and I'd get it and I'd read it on the floor, while he's sitting there smoking his pipe and typing on a typewriter. But the early fly fishing legends, Joe Brooks, fly fishing for, steelhead and salmon, but also all the great big game fishing, all that stuff, Ernest Hemingway, all that. Anyway, so that was always around when I was a kid. And so my dad and I always fished too, but we always conventional fished and fly fished. And I was, I always get this confused. I was in I must have been, I wasn't 16 at the time, because that was when I got my first boat. I must have been 15 and a half. And I remember my dad, took me down. I go, Dad, I want to go fish the bay. I said, okay, well, just don't go outside the jetty. So he launched the boat for me, and I went out, and it was like a 16-foot aluminum, 17-foot aluminum with a tiller control motor. So I'm motoring out from the launch ramp, and I get out into the bay, and I could make a right-hand turn, which would take me in the back of the bay. And then I take a left-hand turn that would take me out into the open water. Well, I took the left-hand turn and went out in the open water against my dad's sort of wishes. And I got out there. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. I mean, it was the waves. I had to go over the waves. I got outside the jetties, but yet that experience was very liberating for me. I mean, all of a sudden now I'm free. It was like I'm in the ocean, open ocean. I mean, there I was in a small skiff in the swells, looking out, going, wow. So that sort of made an impression on me. So I just started. I was 18, 19, 20, I started doing a lot more, saltwater fishing. I had my dad's old fly rods, his old fiberglass rods, and really got into it. And there was a commercial fisherman who really taught me how to fish the saltwater. I taught him how to fly cast, and he said, I'm going to really teach you how to fish the saltwater. And so he took me out. We fished the kelp beds. We fished under the Point Loma lighthouse. There's some big boiler rocks in there, and I was catching calico bass. I was catching barracuda, bonita, and I think that was the moment I went, saltwater fly fishing is where I want to be. And there was a fly shop in town called Stroud Tackle, and Bill Stroud was my dad's best friend. He'd hang out there, and he'd sit in the back room and talk politics and smoke their pipes and whatever. And I walk in and I called him Uncle Bill because I had known him since I was a little kid. I walk in and I was in my early 20s. I'm like, hey, Uncle Bill, I'm getting into saltwater fly fishing. And he said, you know what, Conway, don't do it because it's going to ruin your life. It's going to totally consume you. And I went against his wishes too. And that's how I started doing it. And then Mako sharks just kind of came along. I had a commercial fishing buddy who said, you got to try Makos on a fly because they jump and you can sight fish to them. And he would catch them for the market. So he would go out and he knew where they were, but he wouldn't tell me where they were. He made me earn every Mako that I caught. So my boat was next to his in the landing, and I still had the aluminum boat at the time. And I would go in at the end of a day, and he'd say, "How'd you do, Conway?" I said, I didn't see anything." And he would say, what was the moon phase doing? What was the water temp? So he was making me build kind of a portfolio of what these fish would do and where they were and what time of year. And then finally, after 3 years, I got my first Mako shark. And from that moment on, it was great. And then I started connecting.
And that was on the fly, or was that on gear?
On the fly.
Wow.
I've never conventional fished for Mako shark. Well, I have, but I started out fly fishing for them. Then it was more the hunting game. It was more discovering where they lived, kind of mapping out that whole process. And to this day,
fishing for Mako's always a thing in San Diego, or
no,
was it kind of yeah?
It was well, you had conventional guys that did. They would go out, they would have in Los Angeles, which is 60, 70 miles north of me, they had a big Mako tournament every year. So the guys would go out and, they would fish in the shark tournaments and they would bring in really big Makos. But in San Diego, the only people that fished Makos were the commercial guys because they sold them, to the fish markets. And so these guys really kind of took me under their wing. They thought I was like one step above the village idiot. They're like, this crazy kid in an aluminum boat is fly fishing for Makos. They're like, wow, okay, well, he's no threat to us. So they were great. And I remember when I finally got a bigger boat, a proper center console, an 18-foot fiberglass boat. And that's when I really got serious. That's when I got my captain's license and I started guiding. And those guys really helped me out. They would see me out there and they would call me on the radio and they'd say, hey, Conway, they called Mako sharks the right kind. Like if we were talking on the radio, they didn't say, like, we have a bunch of Makos up here. They'd say, Conway, we got the right kind up here for you. Because they didn't want people going over there and fishing them. So they would say that and they would call me in. They'd say, hey, Conway, how you doing down there? I'm not doing well. Okay, well, we've got the right kind up here at this Latin Launch and it's happening now. So go ahead and come on up. So I would go up there and they would let me slide in and I would catch fish. And in the process, we would just,
so they put you into the fold because they were pumped on this young, adventurous kid just going for it.
They thought I was some dummy. I mean, they would laugh. I'd come into the dock. They'd all be sitting there drinking beer. Whoa, hey, how's it going, fly kid, or whatever. How'd you do today? And I remember this one old guy, Laurel. He's like, man, he goes, I got to hand it to you. He said, I thought I light tackled, Mako sharks. I fish them with 60-pound straight mono, and I hand line them. That's what he did. He goes, I got to hand it to you, kiddo, with a fly rod and 20-pound test. He goes, man, you're really doing something special. So having those guys say that was much more important than having a fly guy going, hey, that's pretty cool, dude. But because these guys were the old G's, man. The original gangsters, and they really took me under their wing.
Yeah. So Makos, I mean, they're known for their speed, acrobatic displays. They're psychotic. What's the approach to wrangling them on a fly rod? I mean, how have you adapted your techniques over time?
Well, the fish have gotten bigger over the years, so I've had to really, I've had to change my tackle. That's the first thing. When I first started doing this, an average size Mako was 60 pounds. Now you can encounter 1,000-pound Mako shark, and you can hook those on a fly rod. Yeah, it's crazy. So,
have you hooked 1,000-pounder?
Oh, yes, many, many times. Now we've never got one to the boat, but who cares? It's fine. You watch them jump, you chase them down.
You don't want that thing close to the boat.
No, well, when they come in on a chum slick, they charge the boat, and so they're right there. So that's as close as I want to get, and they're circling around the boat, and they think the boat is something to eat. I mean, they think it's a swordfish or something because when they come in, they attack the stern of it. But they'll hit a fly. It's a large popper. It's about like this, and it looks like a bird. It's a big flat kind of piece of foam with a feather off the back. And so the observations over the years, watching Mako sharks come into the chum slick, big ones always push birds out of the chum slick, seagulls, shearwaters, and so they'll go after them. I'm like, man, I had to tie kind of a fly that looks like a bird. So basically, it's a gigantic toad fly, floating toad fly. And so when I started using those, I'm telling you, man, it was a game changer. Those big ones would come in and see that, and they would just they wouldn't attack it. They would just kind of softly grab it to move it out of the slick, just to get it out. And so when they would do that, they would run with it long enough to where you could set the hook. Because when a Mako comes into a slick, a bird would be doing this. They'll come in and they'll grab it and just kind of move it and let it go. I mean, they'll chomp down on it, but they won't eat it. So when they hit the toad or the floating toad fly, they grab it and move it, and as they move, you can set the hook on them. It's really unique. It's cool.
So you go out there, you drop a chum line, so chum slick, and you're bringing them in. Once they come in, you have a teaser rod, right? You get them all fired up, and then you have your guy cast in, right?
Right. Well, so yeah.
Just so people know, I've been out with Conway and I've experienced it.
So now, how long ago was that?
It was a long time ago. It was like 2017, 2018.
So things have kind of changed now. I mean, I still tease them, but the first thing we do is we basically cast to them to try to get a strike. And I have found that the bigger ones, they'll react to that fly, that floating fly, pretty well. Now, if that doesn't work, then yeah, you put the teaser out. Now, sometimes big ones will come in, and they're pretty cautious. They're kind of snooping around. I can read what the fish is going to do. If I get a hot fish, we won't even tease it. But if you get that fish that's kind of cautious, then we'll throw the teaser out. So the teaser is a orange marlin skirt with a bonita belly strip shoved inside of it on a long casting rod. And I'll throw that out, and I'll put it right in front of the Mako's nose. I'll throw it out there, and they lock in on that, and I pull it away from them, and it's like teasing a cat with a toy mouse. Yeah. And they get so pissed off. Now they want something to eat that looks orange. So what the angler does, he just throws the fly out there 20, 30 feet, and the Mako's looking for that teaser, and all of a sudden he sees that orange fly, and it's like, there it is, and they come over and grab it. Yeah. But it's that simple. And
and the rods you're using are like custom rods that you have made. They're like what, 20 weights? They're like wood, broomsticks.
they are. They're pretty stiff. There's a couple of companies that I use the blanks. CalStar is one of them, and they make a really nice blank that's stiff at the butt but has a flexible tip, so you can actually cast these bigger flies. Yeah. And when I'm casting these flies, people are water hauling it, right? It's almost like a two-handed cast because the rods are made with a longer handle on it. So basically, you throw it, you anchor the fly behind you, and you just shoot it, and it shoots it out very, very quickly and very accurately. You can't really false cast these rods; they're too short. Yeah. The fly's too heavy. So anchoring the fly behind you on your back cast and then shooting it is a perfect way to do that.
And so once you hook into one of these bad boys, I know obviously it's all about the acrobats jumping out of the water. I mean, that's the show, right? And then if you get one in, maybe you get your hand on the leader or the tail if you're crazy enough. But once you hook one, what's the approach? Because obviously you don't want that thing jumping in the boat, which has happened many times before.
Yes, you don't want that happening. So fish is hooked, motor is on, and we're letting that fish. So when the fish takes that fly, you have to let the fish turn away from the boat. Once that fish is swimming away, then you set the hook. If you set the hook and the fish is coming out the boat, that's when they'll jump in the boat. And you don't want one in the boat. It's like taking a giant chainsaw and just throwing it on the deck. I'm serious. It's very dangerous. So once they grab the fly, and they'll turn away from the boat. Even big ones are kind of like a big semi truck doing a U-turn in a four-way intersection. They take it, they go, and then as they're moving away, then you set the hook. And it's a strip strike, and it's also applying pressure to the side, okay? And letting them know that hook's there. You have to set the hook really hard. I get people that trout fish, and they hook like this, and the shark doesn't even know it's hooked. So it swims around the boat. It's like, oh my God, you don't want that. You want to swing on them super hard. Once you swing on them, they know they're hooked. They start running. And usually within the first, 10 to 30 seconds, that's when you're going to get your jumps. They'll run, they'll jump, they'll clear the water 20 feet, and then I'm chasing them down in the boat. And a big Mako, I'll chase those things a couple of miles sometimes. In fact, I had one on a couple of years ago. I think I chased it. I think it was 7 miles, something like that. It was a massive fish. It was huge. But a lot of times those big ones, they'll run, they'll jump, and usually on that final jump, they'll snap the line. Something just happens.
Just pure power.
Pure power, or they roll up on the leader, and that's fine. However, I've had a fair number of fish in that 600-pound range to the leader over the last several years because...
How many pound test?
So I use a piece of 40-pound, I call it a fuse box. It's a very short piece of monofilament or fluorocarbon. It's about this long. And I tie that to my steel leader. So this is my steel leader. I'll tie that in, fuse box. And then from the fuse box, I go 80-pound fluorocarbon. And it's about 9 to 10 feet of that. So you get a big fish. You get them through the jumps. You pretty much got them. Because as long as you keep tension on the fish and they stay up on the surface, which they do most of the time, I'll run them down in the boat. It might take an hour or so, a couple hours to get into the boat, but eventually they're going to come to the boat. Now, when I get that big fish to the boat, I'll get close enough to where I can touch that 10-foot leader, right? I got it. That's a leadered fish. And then what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and I'll pop that fuse box. I'll go bump like that, and it'll break that 40-pound. So the fish is gone.
So you're not putting your hand in its mouth?
No. And so I use barbless hooks, and I have tube flies. So the barbless hook is in the corner of the mouth, but they'll shake it out of their mouth. The steel leader is only about 2.5 feet long. I've come way down to my steel leaders. They're not long anymore.
Okay.
And then as that fish swims away, that tube fly will float up off that leader and float on the surface if it hasn't done this. And I'm going to explain this to you. So when you get a big Mako or any size Mako, when they run, they're going about 30 miles an hour from the boat. They're hauling butt. And that tube fly will slide up the leader all the way to the fly line as that shark takes off. So a lot of times you're fighting a fish and you'll see the fly floating up the leader. So I get the fly back. So it's really cool. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it sounds like if the fish are getting bigger, it's obviously a sustainable fishery. What is causing the fish to go from 60 pounds when you're a kid to 1,000 pounds? I mean, that's a big progression over 30, 40 years.
Yeah, I think they banned long lining off the Southern California coast, and I think it was 20 years ago. So once they did that, so it's long lining and there's some sort of netting. I think they can't.
So they kind of shut down the commercial fishery in a way. Yeah,
they did, and so that was
that usually works.
And I'm telling you, so what we're seeing now is you're seeing that year class of fish that was coming back. So these big giant ones are all 20 to 30 years old now.
Yeah,
and the other thing is we have
how long does a Mako live?
Nobody knows. I mean, I'm sure they live a long time. Yeah. They grow pretty quickly at first. Like they'll grow 60 pounds a year, then they hit 300 pounds and they slow way down. And then they just, they kind of don't get longer. They get just big and fat. But it's interesting, years ago, you would see a lot of these large, big, giant Makos off Long Beach, off Catalina Island. That's where everybody used to fish them. But now they're here. And the reason why they're here, in addition to the more restrictive commercial fishing regulations, is the presence of bluefin tuna. And the bluefin tuna started showing up here about 10 years ago. They weren't here before. Mako sharks prior to 10 years ago were eating primarily yellowfin tuna and albacore. And those are smaller tunas. But now we have these big, giant 300-pound yellowfin and, big food item, big fish. So I think the larger Makos follow around that food item. And as long as that food item hangs around Southern California, the big Makos are going to be there. So that's what I think. So, yeah.
Okay. And it's just you? I mean, do you have any guides under you, or are you the only one?
So it's me and Captain Greg Stutzer. He helps me out. And there's just one other guy in town, Captain Jack Vincent. He does primarily conventional catch and release. But yeah, we're just kind of by ourselves down here. San Diego's a tough place to be a guide, really is, unless you live here. It's, we have a relatively short season. And honestly, if you're going to be a boat captain down here, you have to do everything. You have to do tuna, dorado, yellowtail, da-da-da-da-da. So that doesn't leave a lot of days to do the Mako shark thing. Because, it's a very specific, very focused fishery. And that's all I do. Because
I'm sure it's a very specific clientele that wants to go after Mako sharks.
It is. And I can do that. I can focus in on those fish. I don't have to go, fish ground fish or tuna or anything like that. So it's really a nice thing. I have a very specific boat. I have a very specific set of gear. I have a very specific program that I do, and I do not deviate from that at all. Because for me, it's big game hunting, right? So it's like if you're hunting an elk or a big mule deer or a bear, that's what you do. You're not going to, if you're on a mule deer, trophy mule deer hunt, you're not going to go shoot a rabbit, right? It's like, that doesn't make any sense. So, and I get people ask me, hey, can we, do a mixed bag with tuna? I'm like, nope, that's not me. I don't do that. So that being said, Captain Greg Stutzer, the guy who helps me out, is an expert at tuna fishing and an expert at all that other stuff. So
he fills in the gaps.
He does. He'll go out and do that. I don't do it. I enjoy doing it with me and my family. I don't like taking people out and guiding them for that because I'm not really good at that. So,
you stay specialized.
I'm just very specialized. So, and it's worked out pretty well.
You've seen the sport evolve. What is the future for the sport? I mean, does it die with with you and your other guide, or do you see other anglers going after Makos on the fly? I mean, what do you see for the future?
God, that's a great question. I don't, I think it's, well, so this is what I think. I think that down the road, I won't be able to do this because I think that, in 30 years time, there might be some even tighter restrictions on shark. I don't know. I mean, just sort of, that's what I get because, you know, some people even think what I do is sort of torturing fish. Yeah, you shouldn't fish sharks, blah, blah, blah. And I totally 100% understand that. I
Well,
don't
all,
see.
all fishing is torture.
Yeah, I think so. And, I respect that. I respect that view. And I'll tell you, I'm doing a lot more shark observation trips these days too. And
Nice.
it's really cool because people get to observe the most awesome predator in the ocean right next to my boat. And I really, really enjoy that. And so probably the future for me is if I go in that direction, I'm good. I'm good with it. Um, I think that in terms of more guides doing this, I don't know. Maybe there might be a next generation of guides coming up, and they would have to definitely have they'd have to have a good setup, to be able to focus on the fishery, to be able to do it every day, and build that clientele that's willing to go out there and sit 10 hours a day, for one fish because it is big game hunting. I mean, we have great days where we're getting multiple fish, but we also have days where we're looking for that one large fish, and that fish typically shows up at the 11th hour. So, so the guide has to be in the right headspace to be able to have clients on the boat for 10, 12 hours and focus in on one thing. And I think that takes years of experience to develop. Younger guys are impatient. They want to do this and that. I've been doing it long enough to where I can sit and wait and have the confidence that my anglers will have the opportunity if we wait it out. And it takes kind of an iron will to do that sometimes. I mean, you
Yeah.
just, or
So
you're
you
just
guys
crazy.
the only ones out there? I mean, are there any other recreational guys? It's just you're the only one really doing it, huh?
Yeah, yeah. From what I know, at least the fly
The only
fishing
one
stuff.
crazy enough to
Yeah,
get
yeah.
after
Or,
it.
du-
I
or
love
dumb
it.
enough. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like my old commercial fishing buddy, he retired. He's like, "Well, Conway, you're too dumb to quit, right?" So, but
Nice.
I've got a few years left. I'm 58, so I'll go for a few more years, and I'm still in good
Yeah.
shape. And the thing is, I love it.
Yeah, of
I
course. You gotta
love
love it.
every
It's, I
moment.
mean, when I was out with you, we didn't get into any crazy big sharks, but I mean, the whole experience is amazing. You're awesome to hang out with. So if things are slow, you're waiting for fish to come in, it's, talking with you is a hoot. The whole experience is great.
Well, I
If you're
always say
thinking about
this.
doing it, just do it. It's not as terrifying. I don't
Yeah.
think that, obviously some things can go wrong and have gone wrong, and that sets us up for our next question perfectly. But
Yeah.
it's an amazing experience, and Conway does it the right way, keeps you safe. And think about hooking into 1,000-pound Mako and
Yeah,
watching
I mean,
that thing leap like 6, 7, 8 times. That's insane.
It's totally insane.
Where else
In a
are you going to experience that?
in a 24-foot hybrid bay boat. That's the other thing.
Yeah, your boat is crazy for what you're doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, you guys share some gnarly Mako stories. I know you got some in your back pocket. So what comes to mind is some of the most sketchy, questionable situations you've been in.
Well, I mean, I've had them jump in the boat. The biggest one I've had jump in the boat is probably 150 pounds, something like that.
Yeah, that'd be high on the list.
And so the guy hooks it, and he actually did a great job. He hooked it, ran out, then it ran back at the boat. I'm like, oh, this isn't good. And all of a sudden, boom, there it was, flying through the air, right towards the boat, hits the bow deck, and then flops in the boat. So the guy kind of ran back behind the console, and this thing went crazy. It was bouncing up and down, it was just going nuts. And I'm like, oh shit, what am I going to do? So anyway, I'm up on my Yeti cooler, like looking at this thing, just destroying the boat. And it kind of worked its way back between the gunnel rail and the center console and kind of got stuck. I'm like, oh shit, now what? And then it worked its way out, and then it flopped. It flopped up right below my feet. So I'm on the stern of the boat, right? I'm on this Yeti cooler. I'm looking down at it, and it's kind of like sitting there, kind of wiggling around. I'm like, oh my god, now what? Well, it made one move, one swipe of the tail, and it fell over the back of the boat, over the transom, and swam away.
Wow.
I'm like, wow. I said, that was cool. And I look at the guy, he's like, I mean, he had the look of like grim death. He's like, oh my God. And, and I've had
let's call it a day.
I've had smaller ones get in. And so when that happens, you basically, you got to put a 5-gallon bucket over their head, and then you get the guy to pick up the tail and you throw them overboard. And then you pull the bucket while you throw them, they fall in and they swim away. But I mean,
I like how casual you're talking about this.
But I've had big ones like jump, pretty close to the boat, and I'm 800 pounders. So
Makos are not normal sharks. I think we need to make a point here that they are not normal sharks. They are on a different wavelength altogether. They're kind of like serial killers. I mean, they're psychos.
They're psycho. They make a great white look like a Boy Scout. I mean, honestly. I mean, people think, great whites are awesome. The disposition is totally different. I had a 200-pound Mako shark chase an 800-pound great white out of my chum slick last year. Just chased him out of there. So they're way more aggressive. So they're kind of like they're the sort of the stepchild that doesn't get any respect. And they're pissed, and they're pissed off about it. And they're
neglected stepchild.
That's right. They're pure killers. And when they come into your boat, then they're looking at you. They roll up and they look at you, and they're circling the boat. And just to see that is pretty awesome. To be in touch with something that large, be that close to it. And I always say, when we're fly fishing for Makos, we're being hunted down. It's the only thing in fishing where we're getting hunted. The only thing in fly fishing. And they don't spook. There they are, and they want to attack. And the great thing is they attack a fly about that big, so that's even better.
Totally. Man, I got to get back down there.
Come on, let's go, man.
You had a great season, right? Tell us about your season. You guys had a phenomenal season.
I think it was probably the best season we've had in terms of the variety of size fish, the consistency of the fishery. I went through my books, and I think we averaged three Makos a day this year. I think we ran. What did we run? I think we ran 90 trips, something like that. We averaged 3 Makos a day. And we might have had 2 or 3 days where we didn't get anything, but that's pretty dang good, And we had a lot of big fish, big fish. So it's pretty cool. I mean, it's becoming something new, right? And I always talk to Greg about this. We're like, what if the sharks just keep getting bigger? It's like, well, I don't know. We're going to have to do something. Maybe get a bigger boat. But
I wonder what the upper level of size is for a Mako.
So the largest Mako I think ever caught was over 1,400. And I got one to leader off Long Beach on conventional gear in 2017. That was, the guy said it was well over 1,300 pounds. It was 12 to 13 feet long. It was massive. It took me 5.5 hours to get that thing in. It was huge. I thought it looked like Shamu the whale when it jumped out of the water. So they get really big, and I don't think there's any top end. I think they just keep growing.
As long as they're living, they're growing, huh?
Yeah, as long as they're eating big food items, they're just getting bigger. So I don't know. So we'll see. I might have to get a bigger boat. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, you guys got to see this boat. When you hop in and you turn out of the marina, they're like, all right, we're doing this and this thing. Okay. It's a flats boat.
It's a flats boat. It in relative scale, it's a flats boat considering the size fish we're catching. But that boat, the reason why we get the fish we get is because of that boat. It's not a threat to these fish. As it's drifting through the water, it doesn't have a high gunnel rail, doesn't have a tower on it. So they're not like they come into it. Right. And I have fished Makos on high gunnel rail boats with a tower. They come in much deeper. Boy, they come right in on my boat thinking it's something to eat. So that.
On a surfboard with Conway out there.
Pretty much.
A longboard.
Yeah. Yep.
That's pretty amazing. So you've been wearing the Merino wool sun hoodie that we sent you. How's that thing been performing for you?
I love it, man. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
What do you think, in comparison to some of your other, polyester varieties of sun hoodies. How does it compare? What do you like better about it, or what do you not like better about it?
Well, it stays like the temperature stays really even. Like I don't feel like, some of the other sun hoodies you heat up in them. I don't heat up in that. Maybe that's just me, and maybe it's because I'm fishing here where I fish. I'm in a pretty temperate climate, right? But that's like one of the biggest things. The other thing is it doesn't like those things, and this. When you wear those other sun hoodies, whatever they're made out of, they stink and all that.
Oh yeah, the polyester smells like crap real quick.
You put them in a front load washer. You can't get, once that's in there, you're screwed. You can't get it out.
Totally screwed.
So that's the other reason I like it. And the way the hood is set up is good for me because I like the full coverage pulling over my hat.
Yeah.
So it's a great set.
Yeah, man, I'm glad it's performing well for you. We got some more varieties, colors, camo patterns coming here soon.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great.
So I know you folks out there have been dying for some camo and new colors, and we got it coming. We're just a small startup, and it's difficult to work with these large manufacturers and actually make something that's sustainable and ethical. You would be surprised.
Oh no, yeah. That's why I fish, because I can't. I don't know. I couldn't do it, but thank God you're doing it. Thank you.
And we got some really cool stuff coming up. I'm gonna send you down some samples this winter of our tech wool line. I think you have a trip. Maybe it already happened up in the Sierras. And maybe some other cold weather stuff. Even hunting, if you're going hunting.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever you're doing in the winter.
Yeah.
Snowboarding, this stuff will work really well.
Skiing, I ski. So what I do is I'll go to Mammoth, and the family and I will go up there and we'll ski, snowboard half the day, then we'll go down and fish the Upper Owens or Hot Creek. Fly fish that. Yeah. So it's a good balance. So yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So you don't just chase Makos, you're full-on fishing guide. You fished all over the world. You've been on TV shows. What are some of the coolest destinations you've been to? What's your top 5 places that you just can't get enough of?
I love the Yucatan Peninsula. I love that for saltwater. It's great for everything: tarpon, bonefish, snook, permit, all those, and you can get all those in one day if you go. Yeah, I usually go to Punta Allen, that area. That whole preserve down there is awesome. I think, for steelhead, I've done a fair amount, not as much as I'd like to. That Smithers area. I mean, I had some incredible steelheading up in British Columbia. It was really killer. And that stands out. I would love to go back there for sure. What else? Oh, gosh. I think Thailand was a great trip, going up into the jungle, fishing mahshir, the Thai mahshir, which is
interesting.
Tell us about that. Fish. Yeah, it was cool. The fish weren't big, but you're fishing these kind of freestone rivers, and you're
they're called mahshir.
Mahshir, yeah. So the golden mahshir is what they get in India. They're big and they look like a big squawfish. But in Thailand, they have the smaller ones. They're really brightly colored. And just the whole experience going out with the indigenous people, and they take you up into the jungle, and you hike up into these rivers, and you basically fish sort of like larger nymph patterns and baitfish patterns to these mahshirs, and they fight like crazy. It's unbelievable. So just the whole experience is just really great. And God, I think, and honestly, the Mako shark, right here. And I'm every single day that I get out on my boat, I'm like, you know what? I fished a lot of places, but this setup here is as exotic and as exciting as anywhere you'll go, and and it's pretty close to, if you live anywhere, you can get to San Diego. You're not going to have to go through customs and all this crazy stuff, but yet you have a big game fish right here, only a couple miles off the coast, that you can get. And, it's just, so I would say that's definitely in my top 5 too. So, yeah.
Nice. Yeah. If anyone out there is interested in doing a hosted trip with Conway, say in the Yucatan or even Thailand, put it in the comments. Yeah. I want to hear from you. It'd be interesting to see if people out there want to do a hosted trip. That'd be really cool. We could do like a Wild Unlimited hosted trip.
I'd love to do that. That would be really cool. Yeah.
That'd be
We'll
sweet.
go back
So
to
like,
Louisiana and see your buddy.
yeah, for sure.
No, I'll set it up with somebody else.
Yeah. So down in the Yucatan, like, where are you specifically?
Punta Allen. So
Okay, yeah.
I've stayed at K Lodge, the Palmetto Club. Those are the two that I stay at, and they're great. Good operations. Best guides down there. Lots of fish, and I go kind of during the off season. I'll go in September. Everybody's like, "Well, that's hurricane season," but you know what? I've been doing that for years, and I haven't had a hurricane hit me. And honestly, the fishing is excellent. And
Yeah,
one of
probably
my
no one's
guide
there.
buddies in one of my guide buddies in Florida tipped me off. He's like, going late August, September, that's when it's happening. So if he's saying that, and he's a great guide and great fisherman, I mean, that's what I started doing, and it's worked out really great.
What's the largest tarpon you've caught down there? Have you done a Grand Slam?
I have. Oh yeah.
So what's what's the Yucatan Grand Slam there?
So the Grand Slam is, it's tarpon, bonefish, permit, and then a super slam. Add the snook. I think that's what it is. I think that's, or maybe it's the other way around. But I've had all 4 species in one day. So yeah, and
Are these
times.
juvenile tarpon that are down there? Or are they?
Well, there are migratory ones down there too. By and large, you're going to get juveniles, but I've got a couple fish in that 80 to 100 pound range over the years.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's cool. It's really bitching.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So your experiences up in BC, you've been up there swinging flies for steelhead. Tell us about some of the stories up there. You have any super memorable moments? I'm sure you do, as we all do with steelhead.
I
Talk
do.
to us.
So I was fishing the Bulkley, and it was October, and so I had been up there like a month previous, and the weather was hot. Fish weren't happening. So the outfitter said, "Come back up. I got an opening." He said, "I have 2 days in October." I'm like, "Shoot." So I made the trek back up there, and that's a rare thing, right? And this guy, I mean, he was pretty in demand. So I get up there, colder than a well digger's ass. I mean, it is cold. So,
A little different up there for San Diego boy, huh?
Oh God, yes. But the thing is, I was up there a month before and it was warm. It was weird. And everything was unseasonably warm. And then a month later, now it's super cold. Anyway, so that triggered these fish to move up the river, and steelhead, fish of 1,000 cat. I get it. So, he took me to this spot, and man, it was just the water. So that Bulkley is an amazing looking river. It's big. It's wild. And, we walked out on this not a sandbar, but like a gravel bar, the big ballast stones. And he had taught me how to really spay cast the trip prior. So I kind of had that wired, right? So I'm working down this run, and I get.
So you're just learning how to spay cast at this time too.
Yeah. So it was probably a month before that. But I got the basics down. I'm doing well. He's going, "Hey, you're doing pretty good." Anyway, so swinging the fly. It was 5 minutes into it, and boom, got a bump. And I went, "Oh," and he said, "Okay." So we stepped out and we went through there again. And at this point, I had not caught a steelhead in British Columbia. So
you're in the run, you get the bump, and then the guide's like, "Let's step out." You probably tie on a new fly, new color. You go up to the top.
I think we might have done that. I think we might have had a cup of coffee or something. I don't know.
You got rest the fish.
And dude, I went right back through there. Same spot. Boom. I'm on. Bam. Okay, so I get this. I'm fighting it. Incredible fight. The thing ran me down the river around a corner. I had to run after it. It was crazy. I think I'm going to lose it. Got that big long rod. I'm just, So finally we get into the net, and it's a beautiful hen. It's just like the most perfect fish I've ever seen, next to an Atlantic salmon. So they both had this thing about them. It's hard to articulate. So I look at this thing, I look into his eyes, I'm like, wow, that is an awesome fish. And then I grab it by I guess they call it the caudal peduncle, right before the tail. And what I realize is
the wrist,
how thick that thing was. I'm like, holy shit.
So you got a big
and I'm
boy.
holding this thing. It's still in the water. It's in the net. I'm like, wow. And I just could not take my eyes off of this thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. later on in the day, I got a big male. So I got 2 in one day.
So the hen, what do you think pound class?
Shoot, I don't even know. It was, I mean, I don't know. It was probably, I couldn't even tell you. It was big. It filled the whole net. The guy had a big giant net.
15 pounds?
Go to probably 15, 20, something like that, I'm thinking. I think. I don't know. I would say at least 15. Okay.
All right, we're going to pull up the photo. I'm going to put it in the show.
Yeah, check it out. It might be 5 pounds. No. Anyway, but you can find it on my Instagram page. But awesome. I tell you that trip was just magical. It was cool. But yeah, so that was. Then
later that same day, you got a buck.
I got a big buck. Yeah.
Tell us about that. Swinging for that.
Well, it's not as so. It was kind of the same thing. Hooked it. It was. I want to say I was. Oh shoot! I don't know. It was further along into the day from what I remember. It was later on in the afternoon. Same thing. Got hit. It just pounded me.
Just ripping line immediately.
Oh yeah, right down the river. And the guy's like, "You're probably going to lose this," but we got it. I ran down the river. I think I got into water about that deep. It was crazy. I thought I was going to get swept away. So we got it to the net. But it was, and there's a picture of that one too.
They talk to guys that are not spay fishermen, like, I don't get it. You guys don't get. You can go seasons without touching a fish, and it's like once you get hooked into a fish on the swing, it's a whole different. It's a rush that you can't really replicate any other way. If you're bobber fishing for them and you catch 5 in a day, it's not special. I'm sorry.
Right.
You might still have fun. And you might, I'm not trying to downplay it or be negative about bobber fishing. I'm just saying it's a totally different thing to get tugged on by a massive steelhead and just have them rip line and you have to go chase down that fish.
It's unbelievable. It is. Yeah. It is the coolest thing. And I had my first experience swinging a fly for Atlantic salmon up on the Guest Bay Peninsula. That's where I and we weren't two-handed. I was using like a 10-foot single-handed rod, but that's where I really started swinging for fish. Dude, that was unbelievable. So that's when I really got hooked. And once again, I had a great guide there too, who really taught me how to do it. And, don't set the hook, let them just come tight, and then just kind of just slowly raise the rod tip. And my goal.
Let them eat. You gotta let them eat. Turn on the fly, pull some line.
So my goal this year, and in March, I'm going to go up to the Salmon River drainage up out of Stanley, and I want to catch a wild steelhead up there if I can. I know it's like a holy grail thing, but I think that's the furthest drainage those steelhead run. They stop right there in Stanley, and so I want to go swing for one there. And guys like, you're not going to get one. Everybody, bobber fishes. I'm like, I don't care. Everyone's there like, man, well, I don't know why you're doing this. You're not gonna get one. We're like, I don't give a shit. I don't care. I'm gonna get one. And if I don't, I had a great day anyways. Yeah. And if I can get one in that Stanley, in that Salmon River drainage up by Stanley, dude, I'm telling you, that would be the coolest thing. Because those fish have swam all the way up there. They've gone that whole distance. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, final thoughts. Anything come to mind? Where can people find you? People want to book a trip? Like, seriously, if you guys want to go on a hosted trip with Conway, drop it in the comments with where you would want to go. What is it like? What do we need? Like 5 people to do a hosted trip? Like a good solid one? What do you think?
Yeah, 5. I start with 5 and go up to like 9. Yeah.
All right, we got 5 guys that want to go to the same spot. Let's just say the Yucatan, because that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's really cool.
And if you're interested, drop it in the comments, and I'll figure out how to put it together with Conway.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. Where can people find you? You're on Instagram. You got a website?
Instagram, Conway Bowman. Facebook, I think it's Conway Bowman Fishing. And then just my website, conwaybowman.com.
Honestly, if you just type in his name with Mako Shark, you'll find a million things. The guy's been all around on TV shows and magazines. It's pretty exciting, what you've put together. I got to get back down there. The Mako's...
Come on, let's go.
It's a different thing. For you folks that are thinking about it, it's a different thing. You got to experience it. There's really nothing like it.
It's unique. That's
That's amazing. All right, Conway, I appreciate it. Thank you for joining us, and we'll talk soon.
All right, Scott. Thanks, brother.